Hi everyone, this is Kyle with kayDbait. I wanted to make a video on hero worship today. It's a concept that happens when you believe something is beyond any kind of criticism or is so great that they are just better than any criticism could be fairly pushed onto them. And what that does is anytime you have hero worship, or even the opposite, which is to vilify somebody, you're not looking at it rationally. You're not looking at it fairly. And I know this is mostly political. Hero worship can be anything. You can deify somebody religiously, or you can fall in love with somebody and you just think they're the most amazing person ever and they have no faults or whatever. But the issue with all of that is you're not looking at things fairly. Now, hero worship specifically, when it's dealing with a political party or a political person, politicians, governors, mayors, anyone that has any kind of political power, it's very common for them to have a sort of idealistic view. Their constituents will have an idealistic view that puts them above criticism. And they themselves might also have that idea about themselves, God complex, or any kind of, I can say this because I'm better, or I can say this because I am right, regardless of what anyone else says. Now, the biggest issue I have with hero worship, or with the vilification of somebody, it's not just that it's wrong and it's unfair, and it causes problems, because it causes the dialogue to break down, because you can't look at it fairly anymore. If all the parties like involved in the discussion have some form of idealistic, this person is better than that person just inherently. If you have anyone that has that, you cannot have a proper discussion. So when you have even one person that says, you know what, everyone else is wrong except for me because that person is above reproach. They cannot be criticized. Everyone else is jealous. You're all idiots. You're all wrong. And it breaks down everything. And I know I don't like bringing this up, but right now, our political party in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans, are so powerfully polarized right now that the people on the right side will not consider anything on the left being even remotely possible. And the same goes for the left side towards the right. They're just so angry at each other, and they're just so petty about their criticisms and egregiously deifying their side. So they're saying the other side are Satan incarnate, and their side is, Mother Teresa's baby from God, Jesus. You cannot criticize them whatsoever. Both sides do that. And when that happens in this kind of structure, where there's only really two parties that are possibly even going to potentially get any kind of extra power, it's the presidential election. Of course, it's considered one of the most powerful people in the world. So you want the most, capable person in that position. But that's not what they're arguing for. They're arguing that everyone else is stupid and my side is beyond reproach. So the conversation breaks down into name calling, mudslinging, fact misquoting, and it's breaking down everyone's tolerance for anything political whatsoever. It's like you can get behind your guy or girl or whatever you want to identify them as, God or demon, and you can get behind them and say, you know what, I support them because of XYZ, and these are my arguments, and most people don't do that. They're saying, you know what, I like the cut of their jib. I like the way they punch that guy in the face, or I like the way they do this, or I like that they support me specifically. And those are technically arguments, but they lack depth, and they definitely lack an unbiased analysis. You're going off 100% bias at that point, or at least a majority of bias at that point. And that causes a problem, because you have And this is what bothers me greatly. I wonder if I still have it popped up on my screen. I do not. Um, there's a post, because it happened a few days ago, and this is every single day, and it's really starting to bother me. It's bothered me for a long time. It's always bothered me, actually. It's Donald Trump again has said something that people are saying is a horribly sexist thing, but now it's gotten to the point where it's diluted everything. And I said in previous videos that he's a polarizing force. He's something that makes controversy out of very little, because instead of having a discussion, we're now having an argument, and arguments are based more off of emotion than fact. And by that process of polarizing both sides, you now have both sides calling the other side demons and their side saints. So I'm not saying whether he's a good or a bad candidate, though I personally believe that he's a bad candidate. What I'm saying is he is a polarizing force, and that is dangerous, extremely damaging to the discourse of what a presidential campaign should be, which is who is the best candidate for the country. It is now being who is better as the most influential or the most powerful. They're not really talking about everything. Like, there's no facts anymore. It's all name calling and arguments and he said, she said. And even when the facts are presented, they're immediately dismissed by the other side, because the other side doesn't want them to be right or wrong. They just want the emotional power that comes with the argument. So when I see this every single day, and everyone is starting to really, really feel this, is they're sick of it. They're tired of all of the bickering. Nobody believes the government is even remotely good because this kind of thing can happen. But also, he's making it worse, so people are being even more tired of it. And it's really, really easy to antagonize groups that are already kind of against each other, because the Democrats and the Republicans are historically hateful towards each other. It does not take very much to get one side to hate the other side about anything. You can actually have polls where you say, okay, so-and-so supports this. Are you with it or against it? And they'll side most of the time with the candidates or the party that they identify as, regardless of what is actually being said. So they're saying, my side is right, even though the other side said it, and now they're saying, oh, I didn't know they said it, now I'm against it. So that idea, that concept of I am just for my side, regardless of any kind of higher amount of analysis, is wrong. It's damaging. The United States, our government, is based off of the people pretty much hiring or electing representatives, and then those representatives are supposed to pretty much show and lead and make laws for the constituents of the population, not just the people that voted for them, but everybody within their influence, sphere of influence. But what it's become is it's a popularity contest. People are getting into politics for the money or the power, and they're using that power to further their own agendas, and the people that are voting for them are getting tired of it. So they're like, okay, the government is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. It's just a smear campaign on top of a smear campaign. Everything's covered in mud. Nobody cares about us, and the only people that do care are the people that are emotionally charged from this, as opposed to, trying to make the world a better place. And it's mostly about number one. It's mostly about the person viewing everything. It's like, well, how does this benefit me? Or how does this benefit the people that I value, as opposed to, fairness? And that's why I don't think a polarizing force is good. It can get things done. Like, if one side is blatantly evil, a polarizing force might make things like the Westboro Baptist Church is a polarizing force, because it makes people who are moderate not want to be even remotely associated with them, so they jump to the other side. That can be something that's good. But for this case, it's already so well established, the things that Trump has been saying as either true or a blatant lie. And a lot of people say, well, it's kind of a gray area. That side's not fair, just attacking him over saying something that's kind of a gray area. He's allowed to say that. PC culture it's gotten too out of hand. You know, we have an entire generation of wimps, or we have a country that's not safe, or we have, you know, evil things being allowed to happen because we're not doing anything. So it's a call to arms. And you can have those arguments, but that's not what they're saying, and that's not why they're doing it. They're just throwing that in there because it's a monkey wrench on any kind of discourse. And you can't have that in something so important. If it's not important and you just want to, you know, throw a monkey wrench into somebody's day because you're a jerk, fine, whatever. I can disagree with that. It doesn't hurt very many people, and I could still argue about that. But this affects millions of people. The amount of influence this has on the entire world it can be catastrophic if it's allowed to continue. So what I'm trying to argue here and explain here is that you cannot have a polarizing force be good in this format. If it's a small thing, or if it's blatantly clear that one side is wrong, then it can be helpful. But in this case, it demonizes one side, or both sides technically, and makes it so nobody can have a discussion about it anymore. What are the most detrimental conversation topics you can have with anybody that you don't know really, really well? Religion, politics, and pretty much anything that sports, like something that you can rally behind that's not necessarily something you can just say is true or false. That's why it's so controversial, because it's based off of opinion. But in this case, there is a truth and a false. It's just people don't know what it is. If you could find out what it is, you can actually say, yes, that is true or that is false. Because these are about statements that are being said about one side or the other, and then you can say whether it was right or wrong for that person to say it with the information they had at the time, and you cannot dismiss that. But it's happening more and more and more because of it's a self-perpetuating polarizing force. The more controversy you push into it, and the more reactionary every single side gets, the less discourse there will be, the more name-calling there will be, so there's more controversy, more polarization, and it breaks the entire system down. It is a two-party system, though it's not necessarily supposed to be a two-party system, that's just how it developed. But you have to have a group effort for things to progress properly. You have to have, okay, our side wants this, your side wants this. We have different ideas of what is right or wrong. Now we have to either come to an agreement or understand that a third kind of option has to be made that actually caters to both sides so that it's fair. If one side has all the power and that side is corrupt or not considering the other influences that might be necessary to make the world better, then you're getting worse and worse and worse because it's a compounding problem. So polarizing forces like Donald Trump, or anyone that says these kinds of things, there's a lot of places that do, then you're losing the discourse, the discussion, the consideration, and the analysis that is required to make these kinds of decisions. It's not whether he's a good candidate or not. It's that he is breaking down the form of discussion that we should be having. Now, I can point out all of the instances where I disagree with what he says, but I can also disagree with the way people are responding to him. And I made a video about this before. You cannot attack something that is a gray area without being fair about it. Because if the person that said it believes it's true, you have to respond to that in some way that doesn't just demonize them, because you're not talking to them. You're talking to the side that already believes that they're a bad person. And all that does is, again, polarize. It pushes things apart, or pulls things apart, however you want to word it. You can't have that in a political arena that changes the entire world, potentially killing people or making their lives better or worse. You have to have the discussion. And some people can say, well, no, we need action, we need action. If your action isn't based off of rationality, like the poll that said, 19% of Democrats and 30% of Republicans wanted to bomb Agrabah. And that's stupid. But you have to figure out why they said that. It was 560-something people that were in that poll. 30% of 560 is not very many people. And so you cannot say fairly, all of X want this or all of Y want this. But that's what's happening. It's like, oh, that means all Republicans are idiots, or all people that support this person are just the most racist bigots ever. But then you can't say that without also saying, well, you know what, 19% of Democrats, that's kind of a lot too. Why did they say that? And you cannot have a discussion if you're going to immediately attack the other side and not consider the ideas of why things were being said. So yes, I don't like what he's doing. I don't like what he's saying. But you have to respond fairly, because hero worship and the demonizing of the people you dislike are both equally bad, because you're not having a discussion anymore. You're having an argument. You're having a name-calling, mudslinging, propagandizing vomit fest. And I hate that, because it doesn't progress anything. It actually retracts, because it's a smokescreen, or it muddles the facts, because now you're just having the loud people yelling at each other instead of the people that are actually trying to make things better have a discussion. And it's mind-numbingly frustrating, and people are starting to pick up on that very heavily, and it's actually making it worse again, because it's, again, a perpetuating force. So when you have somebody say something you dislike, you have to fairly treat it. You have to respond to it in a way that makes sense. You cannot just say, you know what, you're wrong, you're an idiot, you're a bigot, you're worse than Hitler, you're the Satan's offspring with Mussolini. And you can't do that, because all you're doing is making everybody that believes that that's already true just reaffirming it, and the people that disagree with you hate your side even more. Guess what that does? Nothing. It hurts things. So, nothing good, I mean. It just hurts things. So, that's what this is about. And that's what's happening, and it's going to get worse. Because if one person says something and then a million people jump on it and say, you know, you're worse than Hitler now, and you can't do that. Because what's that saying? Your majority isn't going to sway the people that already think your side is worse than Hitler. You saying their side is worse than Hitler does not make the other side agree with you magically. Now, you can point out the facts, like he said this, and this. And, you know, you can point out, well, this one originated from over here, and it doesn't make sense, and this side was probably a lie, or it was a misunderstanding or a misquote. And then, you know, you can ask him to apologize, but then you're demanding he apologize, and then it doesn't work unless you actually have a fair ground of, you know, a foundation for it. And we've lost that foundation. It's become this muddled just argument. And I think that this is very, very bad. And it's gotten to the point where I don't know who will win the election. I really don't think it's going to be Donald Trump, because he's alienated himself from the minorities. But that's a logistics thing. I don't know how many people are going to vote for him. I don't know how many people are going to vote for whoever the Democrats elect. And that, or nominate, I mean. And when that happens, it's all just a random thing, because there's so much misinformation right now. Everything's polarized. You can have the most rational people, and they'll argue about this because they don't want to talk about it fairly. They want to be, you know, just agreed with, or they want to take those other guys down a peg. And that's not how you have a discussion, and that's what it's become. And it's just every single time, every single day, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And the media loves it because it gets everyone viewing the media and all the other random junk. But that's not good. That's not a discussion at any point. So I just wanted to talk about this. I wanted to make a video about it. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it helped in some way for your understanding of the issues. And I hope to see you in the next video. And peace.